Hi, welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, Ghanaian businesses unhappy about multiple taxes which they say are crippling the operations. We have a report from the 24th Annual General Meeting of the Association of Ghana Industries.
It's indeed a good concept in principle in spreading the tax net, but perhaps we should have other ways of incentivizing the small informal sector operators so that they'll be willing to pay.
Also coming up with a budget set to be presented in a couple of weeks, which taxes should stay, which taxes should go. We'll discuss on the Joy Business Summit. And indigenous airline Africa World celebrates a milestone of 4 million passengers. What next for the airline?
World Airlines, you can expect better service, definitely. We will offer you more destinations beginning in 2024. We will offer you better service once we get the new equipment in. They'll be bigger than the ones we operate.
My name is Daryl. Kwawu. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. Thanks for staying with us, everyone. First up, Ghanaian industries are apprehensive and unhappy with the withholding tax system rolled out by the government. They are unhappy with tax non-compliance in the informal sector, leaving industries with the burden of absorbing the expensive tax rates. Some members of the Association of Ghana Industries in the Ashanti, Bono, Ahafo and Bono East regions say multiple taxation is crippling their businesses. Emmanuel Kwawu was at the 24th Annual General Meeting of the Association and has filed this report.
Years ago, the withholding tax system allows a withholding agent, usually companies or entities, to deduct tax when paying another person for goods or a service rendered. The withheld amount is later accounted for to the Revenue Authority. However, many businesses, especially small and medium-scale enterprises, bemoan the tax system is crippling their business. At 24th Annual General Meeting, members of the Association of Ghana Industries in the Ashanti, Bono, Ahafo and Bono East regions were discontent with the rollout of the tax system. They argue the informal sector doesn't buy into the idea of withholding some taxes for services rendered.
From experience, withholding taxes, it is difficult for companies to collect. Because when you say, you're going to have report fee and crime back. Facts are getting your money back. A whole lot. Your core magazine, your distribution.
GRA knows very well the corporate institutions are unable to collect the withholding taxes, but they keep demanding it from us. When we seek the services of the informal sector, they are not ready to have the taxes deducted.
Although they believe it's a laudable tax system, members suggest an expansion of the tax net for effective implementation and revenue generation. Setchuma Kwabwa, a CEO of AGI.
I think the challenge is that the informal sector is very strong and very big in Ghana. When you have such a broad informal sector and you want to bring them to the tax net, it's not easy. The withholding tax is indeed a good concept in principle in spreading the tax net, but perhaps we should have other ways of incentivizing the small informal sector operators so that they'll be willing to pay. And if they all contribute, then it expands the tax net and it also reduces the pressure on the formal sector that is buying the services or wares of this informal sector. I think we need to really look into it and see how best we can encourage the informal sector to contribute a lot more through proper arrangements that is easier to comply. I think that is very key. But
meanwhile, some AGI members are demanding proper utilization of taxes paid to the government for social and economic development.
Taxes, but first, now we will be here. We are say here, I come on with the come on with the point in the job of tax. Now,
I know the taxes collected were used for social development, but now nothing like that is happening.
bibia free so. The idea of the can say, "You can away company soon to so still."
As part of its constitutional mandates, President of the local chapter, Kwesi Nyamecha, is promising a continuous and effectual discharge of duties by the executive body.
No, the plans we have, like I said, is to make sure we sit down, we make sure we do our policies as businesses and push it up to government and make sure government knows how they could do to help us move our businesses forward. That's what we could do.
For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku.
All right, so the Association of Ghana Industries raising issues with taxes. Yesterday we heard from the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry also raising issues with taxes. So here to talk about taxes is tax analyst Francis Timoboy. As you may have seen in that report we just aired, businesses are unhappy about the many taxes and are pushing for relevant taxes in the 2024 budget, which we expect to be presented in a couple of weeks. That's on that subject for the Joy Business Summit this afternoon. Great to have you in studio. We always talk on Zoom. Yeah, and so, we are going to talk about taxes. I want to start from, because we know that some new taxes were introduced in the 2023 budget. How negatively have they impacted the business community, do you think?
So I think if you listen to the feedback from the business community, there appears to be some potential challenges in the system. Mm-hmm. Recently, KPMG and the United Nations Development Program, they did some survey among business community, and then the feedback was that this upcoming budget, they are expecting some review and changes to be made to those that were introduced in the 2023 budget. And I think that if you have such feedback from the business community, it means that there's some potential challenges that came with it when we introduced those taxes. But largely, they were influenced by the IMF program. You realize that 2023 was very heavy on taxes. We rolled out several tax compliance in addition to new taxes. The condition was that there should be medium to long-term programs to ensure that we boost our revenue collection. Around Africa, if you check, Ghana appears to be the lowest in terms of how much taxes we get from our total gross domestic product. So clearly, we've put our hands under the IMF program. So the taxes were some way, somehow needed, if you ask me, because the IMF were looking for some matrices, and those were not there. So they thought that we should either go on full rollout of tax compliance or introduce new taxes. And I think that's what we are seeing in the business community.
And so these taxes, should I say, are needed right now because of the current economic situation that we find ourselves in. And so is it the opposition that we have seen, is it because there was a lack of engagement, there was a lack of sensitization on the part of the government to make, for instance, the business community understand that this is very critical if we want to keep the economy afloat?
So I think largely yes. Look, consultation is very critical in every tax policy implementation. If you allow the people who have been affected by those taxes to have a hand in what is going to be implemented, number one, it creates some transparency and accountability. And again, you are able to get compliance, full, when you are implementation, because I was part of the people who suggested and implemented. But what do we see? In our case, sometimes we roll out a tax before we even start engagement. Look at what happened in the A-levy. So I have seen Ministry of Finance sending some letters out to people and say, okay, look, we need input. But it appears it's just one way. There's no feedback. So if I keep on suggesting and you don't take my suggestions, then clearly I won't be happy with the decision you take. And so for me, I think we even saw it in Parliament. Parliamentarians were fighting when the VAT was increased. Yeah. So there's that division even if in the House of Parliament. So engagement may be done, but I think that the level is really not what we need to have effective policy implementation with our tax policies.
And as we look forward to the 2024 budget, there's already talk about, from the business committee again, about the taxes, and they are pushing for relevant taxes. I want your thoughts on what you think the government should do when it comes to taxes. For instance, the Association of Ghana Industries raised issues with the informal sector, for instance, saying they are not compliant when it comes to taxes. You should rather be looking there, not charging us more.
That's true. And you see, the informal sector is a very complex area. The last time I was walking through Makola, and like, they are not organized. Taxation is based on how much income you've earned. If you are unable to tax those income, you go the indirect tax way. Indirect tax affects everybody. And so, yes, we have seen some indirect tax policies that have been rolled out. We believe, or I personally believe, that we need to, reshape those taxes. For example, in 2018, we decoupled the VAT from the GET fund and NHIL. That created a whole cost component, about 6% for businesses. Businesses are supposed to be producing unit, they are not consumers. And so mostly, if you pass an indirect tax, it's supposed to be paid by the consumer. But if you allow them to keep those costs, it increases the cost of production. And if they are unable to pass it on to consumers, at the end of the day, then you are crippling the production unit. Meanwhile, the tax is supposed to be paid by consumers. And that's a problem. So we've argued that, look, let businesses get a deduction of those cost components. That's why these businesses are crying. The informal sector in Ghana, because of the complex nature of it, you don't know whether you should do a flat rate. You don't know whether you should go after them or arrest them. Some people, today you see him in Makola, the next day he's in Bosokai. It's quite complex. And it's so easy to get money and escape from the tax net. Meanwhile, they contribute the largest. So until we have been able to come up with clear guidelines, policy documents, say this is how we are going to deal with in the informal sector, we're going to continue to have problems. And the people, the taxable unit in the basket are going to be very small. And that's why we are feeling that the taxes are very heavy on us.
Did you foresee a review on the part of government? What's your gut feeling about this? And also based on the fact that there are IMF conditionalities, do you think the government is going to review some of these taxes?
It would have been good the government does it, but because of the conditionalities, I doubt if we have that free hand. The reason is that we still have a lot of catch-up to do. Look at government expenditure and look at the revenue we are getting. Consider even the tax to GDP ratio, which the IMF have always been focusing on. If you look at their report, I think paragraph 23, they were saying that our major problem has been our weak revenue mobilization. So they are waiting for us to catch up with the African average, which is 16%. Currently, we do 13.4%. So we have a lot to do. So I doubt if we will review, if government will be able to review it, because it's just 6 months old when we implemented these taxes. So IMF is keenly looking at, if you take it off, what are you going to replace? It's a critical situation.
What would be your suggestion to the government in dealing with this? And for instance, the ESA, for instance, I'm reading, has called for a further reduction in e-levy. Is that practical?
Look, a reduction in tax rate does not necessarily mean that tax revenue is going to increase. There is something in economics we call the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve tells us that there is that optimal rate that will generate the optimum revenue. So the product that we seek to tax, how elastic is it? Such that when we reduce it, we expect an increase in revenue. Yes, it could be, but I think we need a lot of data to make that judgment. We may reduce it, it may not necessarily, but it could also be. So for me, I think that what we can do is to go back to some of the policies that we did in 2018. And I keep saying that the VAT, we need to look at how we do it. Okay. We should allow the business community to produce. And even if we decide to take the input VAT and allow them to claim it, I believe that it will expand the business production system. And the business community will have some free capital to operate.
Well, my final question would be what the government should be doing in terms of engagement with the business community. Obviously, they are unhappy with their taxes. And so as they prepare to present the 2024 budget, what should be the engagement? What should they be telling the business community? How should they make them understand that these taxes are critical at this point if we want the economy to advance?
I think that we should not just be taking input from them. We should also give them feedback. Have you realized that in Ghana, we only get to know tax policies during the budget presentation? In some countries, it's not like that.
Yeah.
You let the business community know about it ahead of time. Let us make input. This is the tax we need for this particular thing. Again, transparency is important. sometimes taxpayers feel that we don't see transparency in the taxes we pay. And therefore, there is that serious resistance. Of course, that's human nature. If I give you money, I don't know what the money is being used for. Clearly, people will oppose it. So, constructive engagement. And I also believe that the authorities must be independent. I mean, they must have independent minds. It doesn't mean that we should always take what the business community are saying. We just have to balance the equation that the public interest is what should be the ultimate goal.
Francis Timoboy, great to have you in studio to talk about taxes. I'm sure we'll be talking a bit more in the coming days as we prepare for the 2024 budget presentation. I appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Well, let's turn to some other story. Africa World Airlines, an indigenous airline, says it will offer its customers more destinations in 2024. According to Chief Operations Officer Kwesi Oting, the airline will continue providing quality services to clients. He spoke to Joy Business as the company celebrates its 4 millionth passenger. Here's more.
The company, as part of its 11-year operations in Ghana, expressed optimism of a robust aviation sector in the years ahead. Captain Kwesi Oting said, regardless of the current economic challenges, the indigenous Ghanaian company is working assiduously to provide the best of services.
Since we commenced operations way back 2011-2012, Africa World Airlines has steadily captured the domestic market within Ghana. And as such, today is a day where we flew in our 4 millionth passenger. Ironically, he didn't come from a domestic destination, but all the way from Lagos. At the moment, as you know, we fly to all destinations in Ghana. In addition to that, we also fly to Lagos and Abuja in Nigeria. And so today is a very momentous occasion. We've had the opportunity to share with the general public, our regulators, and also our staff and management, the success of Africa World Airlines. From Africa World Airlines, you can expect better service, definitely. We will offer you more destinations beginning in 2024. We will offer you better service once we get the new equipment in. They'll be bigger than the ones we operate, so we're looking at a new cabin offering. As the Deputy Minister mentioned, he'd love to see the orange juice back on our flights, so we're going to work towards that.
Deputy Minister of Transport Alhassan Tampuli applauded the company for their contribution to the growth of the aviation sector in Ghana.
On a number of occasions, I've been asked by my staff whether I have shares in Africa Airlines. Because anytime I'm traveling domestic, somehow I just insist that, oh, please, try and get me on Africa Airlines. And they're like, but there are other airlines. But I do the other airlines too. Just that passenger loyalty sometimes is very important. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me use this opportunity to commend management and staff of Africa World Airlines for remaining in business after commencing its inaugural flight in September 2012, considering the complexity of the industry.
Africa World Airlines said it will continue to connect Africa to the world through most efficient, safe and reliable air transport services.
Congratulations to the Africa World Airlines. Well, next is Let's Talk Tech. And with the continuous disruptions on the digital scene, Ghana still remains resolute with the digitalization agenda. But how well are we developing the various value chains of the digital ecosystem, from automation of business processes to the creation of an enabling system to support tech startups? Well, today on Let's Talk Tech, we discuss the state of Ghana's digital innovation agenda and the way forward. Joining us Joy Businesses, Isaac Atasenyako joins me on Zoom to discuss this. Not on Zoom. You're actually supposed to be on Zoom, but we changed our mind. And then we said you should be in the studio with us to discuss this. So first off, just for the benefit of our audience, what is Ghana's digital innovation agenda?
Well, Daryl, it's basically to ensure that the things we do here in this country is aided by digital tools. So for instance, the automation of business processes. Even if we take the public sector, service delivery, for instance, it should be easy for me to register a company online at the comfort of my home. It should be easy for me to pay taxes at the comfort of my home. Offering or infusing digital tools to some service delivery from, businesses, again, small businesses, maybe I'm a small business, let's say I prepare our bottle, shuttle and export. I should be able to automate this process to make it easier, to make it more efficient so I can double my output, for instance. So it's basically the infusion of digital tools in service delivery.
And so at what stage are we at right now in developing the digital ecosystem?
Well, now there are lots of things happening, lots of work being done. However, it appears to be in fragment. So, like the recent NSMQ, for instance, it's a very brilliant program.
By the way, PRESEC 1,
no.
NSMQ.
Well, Prempeh is coming stronger next year. We're coming stronger next year. It's our season next year. But well, I mean, so that the theory being taught, these young ones, they will be able to develop tools that can help or drive innovation or drive business growth, for instance. So if you know what, let's say, or the application of superposition, for instance, which is being contested anyways. If you know the application of superposition and what it means, then it comes to what we can do with it to make our lives easier. So a lot of work is being done largely around policy formulation. The recent talk about AI and what we should do about it, regulation. I know there's a lot of work being done on the e-commerce space, regulation, you know, cybersecurity. The authority is doing lots of work, data protection. So the growth of the ecosystem has so many fragments that needs to be developed to enable that airtight growth without or with very little loopholes. Though we say that technology is always ahead of regulation, it's important that we look at what is being done across, you know, the globe and in some parts of the world, in Europe, in America, and also in Asia, to be able to build one of our own that will support our growth. Otherwise, we'll keep lagging behind. Just last year, we're having conversations about BPOs and how we can infuse IT in our service delivery. AI came, a lot of things has changed. So some of these things are very important. How we develop the value chain of the ecosystem. You're a small business. Someone has an accounting software. You don't have to go through the trouble of doing your own accounting. Customer service, for instance. On the recent Joy Business Summit, you know, a lot of talk was made about bots and how customer service bots are being used these days. How can a small business tap into that sector to make its work efficient so that they don't have to always answer calls, always respond to text messages? So essentially, it's about the development of the right policy framework to aid the growth of the sector and also to develop the value chain.
Yeah, you talked about changes, and so we have to deal with digital disruptions, right? Tell us about some of these disruptions and what we should be doing.
Sure. I think now, when you look at the whole digital landscape, AI is taking over. And so I made mention of e-commerce, about automation, and even about customer service, how AI is constantly changing the face of doing business, even the digital landscape itself. And so there are things that you would ordinarily think that maybe I can build an app to do. There's an AI tool that does that. Now, it's how we catch up, how we recognize these changes and adapt to the changes as and when. If we are going to stay where we are and wait to, you know, get, you know, fully grasp the whole system before we begin to roll out certain things, we may always lag behind. And so keeping abreast with the changes with AI, what's the future when it comes to AI? Just about regulation, what's new? What should the projections be in the next 10 years? What should be what should the digital landscape look like? What should we be doing now to be able to catch up with the development on the digital scene? Now, if we're able to do some of these things well, then we are sure that, well, we'll be able to catch up with the development and the happenings around the world, and we'll be able to create an efficient system that could boost growth and boost, you know, our economy as a whole.
Brilliant analysis from my colleague, Isaac Atasenyako, wish he went to a better school.
No,
but Blue looks good on you, so...
It's the best senior high school.
Blue looks good on you. I just wanted to point that out.
Irrespective of the NSMQ.
Blue looks good on you.
Well, it doesn't really matter.
Atasenyako, here with me. He's disappointed Prempeh lost. the NSMQ.
Not at all. We'll bounce back strongly next.
Before we go, let's check our what's trending on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. That top story brought you, we need a problem-solving budget to spur growth in 2024. That's former AGI president. Also, inflation in 2022 was highest in over 2 decades, according to ESA. Get up to date on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Daryl. Thanks for watching. We will be back same time tomorrow.